What if I told you that trying to help others before securing your own foundation is the fastest way to guarantee you'll help nobody at all? Most people believe that making money before helping others is selfish. They're dead wrong. I learned this the hard way when my attempt at premature generosity nearly destroyed my ability to contribute anything meaningful to the world. The 99% get trapped by this noble-sounding lie, while the top 1% understand a fundamental truth about resources and impact that changes everything. Most people think my biggest business mistake was a bad investment or poor marketing decision, but the truth is far more counterintuitive and dangerous. The mistake that almost destroyed everything wasn't about losing money on a risky venture or failing to understand my market. It was about giving money away too early to people who deserved help for reasons that seemed completely logical at the time. I had just closed my first six-figure month. The dopamine hit was incredible. After years of struggle, the validation felt intoxicating. Money was finally flowing in consistently, and for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't checking my bank account with anxiety. That's when the guilt started creeping in. I looked around at friends who were still struggling, family members working jobs they hated, and strangers online sharing their financial hardships. The voice in my head became relentless. You have more than you need. Other people are suffering. What kind of person hoards money while others struggle? So I did what felt right. I announced a scholarship program, $5,000 to help aspiring entrepreneurs get started. Then another program for single mothers trying to launch side businesses. The applications poured in, each story more heartbreaking than the last. I couldn't say no. Within 3 months, I had committed to paying out $47,000 in scholarships and financial assistance. It felt incredible. I was making a difference. I was proving that success hadn't changed me. Then reality hit like a freight train. My business revenue wasn't as stable as I thought. The six-figure month turned out to be an anomaly, not a new normal. Client payments were delayed. A major project fell through. Suddenly, my business expenses were competing with my charitable commitments for the same limited cash flow. I found myself borrowing money to fund scholarships while my business accounts ran dangerously low. The psychological pressure became unbearable. I had publicly committed to helping these people. Their success stories were tied to my ability to follow through. Meanwhile, I was lying awake at 3 in the morning calculating whether I could make payroll and scholarship payments in the same month. I started taking on clients I didn't want at rates that barely covered costs, just to generate enough cash flow to maintain both my business operations and my charitable promises. This is what I call premature generosity syndrome. It's the psychological trap that catches ambitious people right after their first taste of real success. The guilt of having more than others becomes so overwhelming that you immediately start redistributing resources before building a sustainable foundation. You mistake temporary cash flow for permanent wealth. You confuse feeling successful with being systematically prepared for long-term impact. The breaking point came when I had to choose between paying my virtual assistant and funding a scholarship for a single mother who had already started her business based on my promise. I realized that my desire to help others was actually preventing me from helping anyone effectively. By spreading my resources too thin too early, I was creating a house of cards that would inevitably collapse and disappoint everyone who depended on me. The hardest conversation in my life was calling each scholarship recipient and explaining that I needed to restructure the program. Some understood, others felt betrayed. The shame was crushing, but the lesson was invaluable. I learned that the airplane oxygen mask principle applies to money just as much as it does to emergency situations. You cannot save others if you haven't secured your own survival first. This wasn't about being greedy or selfish. It was about understanding that sustainable generosity requires sustainable wealth. Every dollar I gave away prematurely was a dollar that couldn't compound and multiply into $10 of future impact. Every month I spent struggling to balance charity with cash flow was a month I couldn't invest in growing my capacity to help others long term. The 99% make this same critical error because they confuse moral intentions with strategic thinking. They let guilt drive their financial decisions instead of building systems that maximize their eventual ability to create change. The psychology behind this mistake runs deeper than most people realize. While 99% of people argue about when to start giving back, the top 1% follow a precise 3-stage system that maximizes their eventual impact. They don't debate the ethics of accumulating wealth before helping others. They don't wrestle with guilt every time they choose personal growth over immediate charity. They understand that sustainable generosity requires a systematic approach that most people completely ignore. This framework separates wealth building from wealth distribution in a way that prevents the generosity trap that destroys so many well-intentioned people. Most wealthy individuals learn this system through painful experience or mentorship from others who had already made the same mistakes. They discovered that trying to help others while building wealth simultaneously creates competing priorities that sabotage both objectives. The common belief that you should help others as soon as you have any extra money sounds noble, but it's financially catastrophic. Extra money isn't surplus money. Extra money is usually just temporary cash flow that hasn't yet been allocated to essential business operations, emergency reserves, or growth investments. When you give away what feels like extra money, you're actually giving away your future capacity to help at a much larger scale. Stage 1 is emergency foundation, and it requires specific numbers, not vague feelings of financial comfort. You need 12 months of personal living expenses plus 6 months of business operating expenses in completely liquid savings. Not invested in stocks, not tied up in retirement accounts, not counted as business revenue that hasn't arrived yet. Cash, sitting in boring savings accounts earning pathetic interest rates. Most people think they've reached financial stability when they stop worrying about next month's bills, but real stability means you can survive a full year of zero income without changing your lifestyle or closing your business. The psychological difference between feeling successful and being systematically prepared for sustainable impact determines everything that happens next. Feeling successful creates confidence that leads to premature decisions about helping others. Being systematically prepared creates the patience to wait until your foundation can support additional weight without cracking. Your brain interprets temporary cash flow increases as permanent wealth changes, which triggers the urge to start redistributing resources immediately. This neurological programming served our ancestors well when resources were scarce and temporary, but it sabotages modern wealth building that requires compound growth over extended periods. Stage 2 is growth capital, where you reinvest every available dollar into your own capabilities and systems before expanding outward to help others. This means upgrading your skills, hiring team members, improving your processes, and scaling your revenue generation capacity. Every dollar you invest in yourself during this phase multiplies your future earning potential exponentially. Every dollar you give away during this phase represents hundreds of dollars you won't have available for charity later. The counterintuitive truth about strategic resource hoarding is that it multiplies future generosity potential exponentially rather than preventing it. $1,000 invested in improving your business systems might generate an additional $10,000 per year in revenue. That same $1,000 given to charity provides one-time help to one person. The person who receives your investment continues benefiting indefinitely. The person who receives your charity benefits once and still needs more help later. Stage 3 is impact deployment, where specific metrics and systems indicate readiness to help others without jeopardizing your personal foundation. You're ready when your business generates consistent monthly profits that exceed your living expenses by at least 300%, when you have 2 years of combined personal and business expenses and savings, and when you've identified repeatable systems for generating new revenue streams. These aren't arbitrary numbers. They represent the minimum foundation required to absorb temporary business disruptions while maintaining cherishable commitments. This framework transforms guilt-driven giving into strategic empowerment that creates lasting change. Instead of giving away money because you feel bad about having it, you give away money because your systems can sustainably support the donation while continuing to grow your impact capacity. Instead of helping a few people temporarily, you build the infrastructure to help many people permanently. The mindset shift that makes this approach feel natural rather than selfish comes from understanding that building wealth strategically is the most generous thing you can do for your future ability to change lives. Securing your own oxygen mask first isn't about greed, but about creating the capacity for maximum impact when it truly matters. The social pressure to give before you're systematically prepared destroys more potential generosity than it creates. Every dollar you redistribute prematurely is a dollar that can't compound into $10 of future charity. Stop letting guilt drive your financial decisions. Evaluate your current foundation honestly. Do you have 18 months of combined expenses saved? Can your business survive 6 months without revenue? If not, every dollar you give away is borrowed from your future ability to help others at scale. Building wealth strategically is the most generous thing you can do for your future.